Welcome to the Supreme Love Project, where you learn to love supremely so you can live supremely. This is a Power Hour. This is the place where you can get the information you need to heal the terrors in your soul and launch a revolution in your life. Get ready. Take notes. Now, here's your host, Janine Staples.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Staples, your host. Welcome back to the Supreme Love Project. You are tuned into another edition of the Cold Crush Teleseminar Series, and I feel so excited to be back with you today. I have another star in the universe, a guest extraordinaire. Her name's Sally Kempton of SallyKempton.com. Sally, are you on the line?
I am on the line, Janine. Lovely to be here.
It's really great to see you and be with you here. I see that you talk a lot about accessing the power of the sacred feminine. I'm really excited to hear you talk about Shakti. I want to know more about your journey and your level of expertise. Welcome to the Supreme Love Project. Thank you for being our special guest today. What I usually do, Sally, to open up the call, just so that the thousands of women from around the world who are listening to us can get to know you better and understand how we can relate to you as our sister. Just want to open the floor and ask you to tell us about your journey. Who are you? What brings you to your work? And what do you do in the world?
My work in the world is really the work of helping people connect to that aspect of our own consciousness that is universal, that's heart-based, and that really allows us to hold on to the deepest sense of our true self while engaging in the journey of our particular life path. So essentially, I'm a spiritual teacher. My specialty is meditation. I also focus very deeply on the divine feminine as what, Ken Wilber, the consciousness philosopher, calls the second person quality of Shakti, of the great energy of creativity and creation. And because one of the things that I discovered in my journey is that in terms of spiritual growth, there are several components that we all have to engage. One of them being to be really willing to wake up to our true self, to wake up to that awareness that underlies and undergirds all our experience. Second is to cultivate in ourselves a sense of the sacredness of the world around us, and also the possibility that we are actually held and guided by invisible presences and invisible forces that really deeply desire our growth, that deeply long for our fulfillment, and to learn how to contact them. And the third is to actually find the way of skillful action in the world that allows us to stay tuned to our own center, to recognize the fact that there is help all around us, and to do our part in transforming the world, the small world that we, encounter day by day, and also the greater world that we're all connected to. So I started life as a journalist. I wrote for magazines and newspapers in New York City for a number of years. I wrote for the Village Voice, I wrote for Esquire, I wrote for New York. And then I had a spiritual awakening in my 20s and became a student of a great Indian teacher named Swami Muktananda. Spent 29 years in that, in that cauldron of transformation, and many of them, 20 of them as a monk, as a Swami, and began teaching independently in 2002. I've written 2 books, one called Meditation for the Love of It, the other called Awakening Shakti. For 10 years, I wrote a column for Yoga Journal called Wisdom, which was about how you apply the teachings of yoga philosophy to your actual issues. And I am very interested in the topic of how we let go of the numbing, the frozen qualities that we may have fallen into as a result of our childhood conditioning and the experience this society, how we let go of that, allow ourselves to be really vulnerable and open, and yet feel protected and strong and empowered in that openness.
Mm. Yeah, that's so powerful. Your story is really wonderful. It's just, it's notable to have what's called an awakening and make a big life change the way that you did, as you were called to do. I like what you say about understanding the numbness that comes from living apart from the feminine center, and that's exactly what Cold Crush is about. And so that leads me to my first question for you, Sally. What do you see as the feminine soul and the feminine center? What does that mean?
For me, the feminine soul, the uniquely feminine soul, is a capacity which I find to be heart-centered, essentially, for coming from a place of genuine inwardness. In other words, what I believe is uniquely feminine in our hearts and souls is the capacity for acting from an inner truth that is based in the heart and that is willing to wait until the moment that is right to act. In other words, I believe that masculine consciousness, and we're talking here about, really non-gendered consciousness in both the masculine and the feminine. My experience is that masculine consciousness actually acts in response to external events and is geared at, let's say, manipulating and working with and profiting from external events. Whereas feminine consciousness waits for the inspiration from inside and acts from that inner inspiration. So, in other words, the true feminine consciousness is not necessarily motivated by the externals, but is motivated by the call that comes from inside. And I believe this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to find our true feminine center, because it really does require that we learn how to listen to what is being given to us from within.
Yeah. I'm typing furiously what you're saying, Sally. When we think about, I want to co-sign what you're saying, when we think about our identity, one of the concepts that I preach in the Supreme Love Project is knowing your lover identity. It's absolutely integral that a woman knows her lover identity. I found 5 lover identities in my work, and that the definition of a lover identity, according to my research, is your entire relational ideology and way of being. Your entire relational ideology and way of being. And so that your lover identity includes your sexual, social, psychological thoughts and behaviors, language systems, and actions in connecting with anyone, including yourself. And so if you have the lover identity of bitch, for example, it's a signifier that a woman who cultivates that type of lover identity has been hardened. She's been probably hyper-criticized. She's been probably the subject of a great deal of abandonment, rejection, and she's learned to be profane, caustic, argumentative, really dominant in a lot of ways, and that is borrowing greatly from the masculine center, which you feel like you said, it's not gender, it's a sensibility. And so the point is, if we don't know what our feminine center looks like, what that center sounds like, how that center operates as a space through which we can garner wisdom to make decisions about how we speak to ourselves, about how we speak to other people, how we behave in relationship, how we develop concert in language, to elevate language or to quell and repress it or eliminate it altogether. If we don't have that orientation and identity, we're really, really numb. I mean, the cold that we build up, the barriers are thick. Would you say so?
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm just, as you're speaking, and this is fascinating, and I completely agree with you. I'm actually remembering what it took for me as an adult woman to discover my feminine center. And it's not something, I had the opportunity to do it in a kind of deep interior work space. But I do think it is crucially important for women to find a way to be in that interior workspace, because what I discovered is that it is absolutely necessary in this work to let go of all the things you think you are and actually be willing to let go of them, to be willing to be completely vulnerable as as that essential part of you that is prior to the conditioning, that is prior to the social demands, that is prior to the childhood wounds, and to actually be willing to take the extremely courageous journey of moving into your own vulnerability. Because, again, in my experience, the cold, the numbing, the vulnerability, and the vulnerability is the doorway into the true self, into the feminine center, which is a place where you're willing to be unknowing, where you're willing to not understand, where you're willing to and I know this sounds counterintuitive, where you're willing to be undefended for the sake of allowing the strength that's inside to begin to create your life for you. And I do think that is perhaps the most courageous thing that a woman can do is begin to, perhaps in little ways, access her own vulnerability. For some of us, we can do it for 4 or 5 minutes because it's too scary. But the more you're willing to feel into your vulnerable self, the greater the possibility that your vulnerable self will actually, I call it morphing inwards, melting inwards to the place where you are free, undefended, in your own beauty, unconditionally loving, and then allow your words and actions to come from that place without worrying about the effect, without worrying about what you might lose, without worrying about how hard the journey might be in the next moment, but actually being willing to be present with your own vulnerability for even 10 or 15 minutes a day in the privacy of your own space at first, is the secret that for me has made all the difference.
Oh my God. Sally, I run a webinar that's called the Minute Methodology, and I talk specifically about a 4-step practice to guide women on being present in those moments where we let our guards down. I call them either, being cognizant of the messy minutes or the miracle minutes that we get in plethora all day long. And I think what you're talking about is a mark of true courage. I think that often so many of us that build up these icy terrain that people have to skate across and trek across in order to get to our interior life are really not afraid of as much of rejection or abandonment from other people as we are rejection and abandonment from ourselves.
Precisely.
I think that
precisely.
Right. We don't know how to be alone with ourselves. And I'm talking about the scariest, weakest, most fragile aspect of ourselves. And when we learn to do that work minute by minute by minute, from our feminine center, this is what we're talking about, when we're able to do that work, drawing from feminine energy that is essentially goddess, warrior, servant, queen, when we can draw forth that energy and be with the wounded parts of ourselves, those iterations of ourselves that are what we like to hide, what we want to reject ourselves, what we want to abandon, then we build up the courage and the capacity to walk with our eyes and arms open in the world, as opposed to blocking our sight and holding up our dukes and our fists and our arms, afraid constantly. Yeah, beautiful. And,
So to add to that, just to talk for a moment about the goddess archetypes, about the divine feminine archetypes. Again, in my experience, obviously all of us have access to different aspects of these archetypes, to some aspects of these archetypes more strongly than others. The thing that I feel as a contemporary woman, having lived through the powerful changes that have gone on in women's lives in the Western world, at least in the last 100 years, that what has felt to me to be most important is to be able to access your own feminine vulnerability with a sense that there's a mother energy that is present around you, that's holding you, so that you actually can learn to find it, feel it, rely on it, and accept the support of that vast protective feminine goddess energy, who is, and this is something that I think is very important, that is potentially within you. Some of us have it more developed than others, but which is always present in the atmosphere. In other words, in the subtle realm, the energy of what I would call divine mother or sacred mother energy, which is the resource that women especially need to tap into, because almost all contemporary women need to remother ourselves. We generally speaking, most of us were not properly mothered because our mothers hadn't been properly mothered themselves, so we have generations and centuries and centuries probably of unmothered women who don't know how to mother ourselves. And one of the gifts that we receive from really tuning into the sense of the archetypal energies that we call goddess is that there exists in this world an archetype whose entire dharma, if you will, whose entire intention is to hold women in the birthing process of our own feminine center, so that we don't have to be warriors in those moments. We can little by little take refuge in her, in the great she, and actually let her uphold us as we do our work. And there are two things that over the years I've discovered, and I think my sense is that your paradigms are extremely skillful, very beautiful, and that nothing works unless you are willing to make that connection to your own vulnerable, open, and ultimately ecstatic soul, and the mother who is present for us, who is going to, in a certain sense, give us the reassurance that we need in order to be able to trust ourselves enough to take the courageous steps forward. So I do think it is really important not only to cultivate a sense of one's own center, but also to cultivate the sense that there is tremendous love and support that we really only have to. That's my cell phone. That we only have to tune into. That we only have to accept, really.
Right. And that's a difficult task. And so I think that when we talk about one of the sensitivities I have in talking through any of my seminars and the free summits that I produce for the Supreme Love Project, any one of my community, is that there might be a sensitivity to talking about the simplicity of the work. And I think it is simple. It's just not easy. It's very true. Simple. It's simple. This is, please go ahead.
Very simple. It's very simple. And, and of course, because we are, postmoderns and we are tremendously attuned to complexity. And I myself adore complexity and all the different permutations of what life is like when you grow up in different cultures and in different situations. Nonetheless, what I've always found is that it's really important to have a couple of simple intentions that, you know, because it's when you're really clear about your core intentions that all the work you do is appropriately targeted. So, and that, you know, I understand why you would be sensitive to simple solutions, and why it's so important to say they're simple but not easy. And, you know, so, but where I'm coming from is the result of, I would say, years and years and years of actually working with many different modalities, most of which I honor and respect, and coming back again and again and again to the same truths, you know, which is that the question, where is myself now? What is myself now? Who am I now? Who am I as a feminine being? Who am I as a human being? That to ask that question with the understanding that what you're looking for is not a list of your opinions or your impressive characteristics, but actually what you're talking about, a deep felt sense of your own center, you know, of that in you which you may have had only a few moments of connection to in your life, but which when you begin to cultivate it, you realize is actually the source of all your strength and of your identity. And then and then the second thing is to just keep connecting to the experience of that thread of love in the universe, which I find you can access by asking just a very simple question: is there any love present now? It's amazing how that question, which is, as you say, so simple and basic, if you really ask it in an open way, you start to have an experience that there is some, you know, very gentle, loving presence that's available to you. Might be very faint at first, but the more you cultivate it, the more you realize that it's never not present. So yeah, I think those are very, very simple, but they're not simplistic, because as you know, as I know you know, we each get to develop our own avenues of approach. You know, since this life we're living is an experiment, right? We're all experimenting with becoming our best self and giving our best gifts, and we find at different times different ways to tune into the ever-present center, the self. You know, for instance, I know many people for whom the doorway into the self feels very much like grief. You know, that when you allow yourself to feel your grief, it opens your heart. I know people whose doorway into the center is by anger, through expressing anger. You know, and the trick is to move from the outward expression to what's at the source of it, to the door that's opening in your being. When a feeling of righteous anger arises, or when great grief arises, so that the feeling at the core of those, you know, rather intense and sometimes overpowering emotions, so that the doorway into the self at the core of them can reveal itself. And to be able to do that, our intention has to be to know the truth of ourselves, you know, to really ask the question, how can this experience take me to the truth, which is an internal truth, you know, not the truth of the outer situation.
Right, and I think that's a part of the key. My next question is about methods to use to know the self. So what are some of the methods? And I think that some people, just on that last point, Sally, some people might say, well, how do I get to this truth? What does this feminine center sound like? How do I even know, it's there? There's so many people who are not ethereal in sensibility, I think we all are, because we're all gods and we're all...
I think we all are, yeah.
But I think because of this numbness, that's why we're doing Cold Crush. So many of us are numb and detached, and so we've lost our way, and we don't know exactly what it is you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I've done the work, and I have the journey. I'm thinking about the thousands of women who are listening who are just saying, what? I'm not quite there. And so really what ends up needing to take place is a centering in the concrete. So what are some methods that are sort of concretized that a woman listening might be able to access to lead her into a recognition of her feminine center?
Well, I'm going to offer a couple of methods.
Okay.
One of them is a very simple visual meditation. And I've found that we can use our imagination if we really understand that imagination is a faculty that we have been given in order to imagine ourselves into a greater reality, into a higher and more powerful reality. So let's say our intention is to find the beauty and the power of the feminine center within us. So this is how I began to do it, and this is actually one of the basic methods I offer my students. And it is to begin with the breath, because the breath is the most powerful connection there is between our physicality and our subtle self. And simply feel the breath and begin to allow the breath to open up your connection to the region behind the chest.
Right.
And one of the ways that is fun to do that is to imagine that there's a ladder or a chute from behind your nose down to the area just behind the sternum. I find it about 8 inches or 8 finger widths above that U-shaped bone at the bottom of the sternum. So imagine there's a ladder between the back of the nostrils and the heart, and imagine yourself walking down that ladder with each breath. And when you find yourself in the heart region, just become aware of the energy of the heart, which may feel very numb. It may feel, hard. It may feel prickly. Just become aware of how it feels, because what's important is not how it feels, but that you allow yourself to feel it.
Right.
And then this is the imaginative part. So feel that in the center of this heart space, imagine a cave, not a stony, scary cave, but a velvety, golden cave. A cave that's made of velvety light. And imagine yourself sitting inside it. Just feel that you as attention, you as awareness are sitting inside. And just allow the breath to flow in and out into that heart space. And feel as though sitting inside this velvety golden cave, your awareness is drawn backwards so that it feels as though the back of your body opens and you experience yourself resting in a kind of energetic backrest. A presence behind your heart that is literally embracing you in a subtle way. And it's very important not to think too much about this, but just to allow the breath, the inhalation, to draw your attention backward through the back of the heart. And with the exhalation, feel that the energy within the heart and the energy behind the heart are connected, feeling as though there is an embracive presence, a presence that literally has your back. And inside that space, ask yourself, what is my feminine heart? Where is my feminine heart? Who is my feminine heart? Who am I as a feminine soul? Ask yourself these questions. And as you ask the questions, don't try to come up with an answer, just notice the feeling that arises. And as you ask the question, certain feelings will come up, and you want to ask yourself, what is deeper than that? What is my feminine soul beyond this feeling? Is there a deeper sense of who I am as a feminine soul that I can access now? And again, when we ask these questions of ourselves, we often imagine that there should be, a word or a name or something specific that comes through the mind. But what you're doing here is actually accessing a wordless, thoughtless feeling space. And if it feels numbed, or if it feels like you can't get in touch with it, just keep gently asking, is there more? Can I go deeper? What is the deepest aspect of my feminine soul that I can access now? So it's a process of self-inquiry, of really asking that in you, which is the heart of each of us, but which we've often hidden from ourselves.
Yeah.
To just come forward, to give us a peek.
That was beautiful. I don't mean to interrupt you. I actually went into a meditative space while I was listening to you guide me through that practice of going from in my internal space, from the back of my nostrils down to my chest and into my space, to be in that cave, that golden velvety cave of myself, and ask these questions and be gentle and patient and fascinated with myself.
Yeah, fascination is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascination is a key concept in Supreme Love Project. We teach fascination. And also a key idea is teaching women how to feel. What it means to feel, because we really don't know. We use the word, I feel angry, I feel tired, but we don't know how to actually go to our body and understand our sensations from the inside out and trust those sensations as meaningful and as purposeful and as true.
Yeah, right on. Right on.
Yeah, this is what you just guided us through. And honestly, I feel like, unfortunately, we're almost at the end of our time because that meditation was just fantastic. I want to ask you another couple of questions if I can get it in.
Sure.
In our last 5 minutes. The question that I have next has to do with the role of patriarchy in blocking our understanding of our femininity, our feminine centeredness, and in blocking our ability to heal and our ability to feel. And what does it mean to be influenced by the patriarchy, and how the patriarchy develop this numbness, because really, to access the space that you just provided for us, Sally, is a goal. It's one of the goals of being a Supreme Lover. And it's not about living in that space constantly. It's about accessing that space whenever we want. That's the key.
Yes.
Developing the strength and the capacity and the adept skill to call up our feminine center and to operate from the feminine center. And patriarchy definitely takes a toll on that process. So I'd like for you to end by just helping us to understand those interferences so that now that we've had this beautiful meditative space and you've shown us this wonderful method, we can listen to this interview over and over again. We want to also be aware of some of the pitfalls, the tripwire that could actually circumvent and subvert our work.
Yeah, well, of course, the topic of patriarchy is endless. But I would say that in this kind of work, that there's a couple of things that the patriarchal voice says to us. First of all, what's the point? How is this helping me with my very real problems? Secondly, patriarchy always wants to understand things from a rational viewpoint. And so my own experience of patriarchy, and I think we all have different experiences, is that it's the voice of patriarchy when it comes to inner work is a voice that doesn't understand feeling, that doesn't know about feeling, that doesn't experience feeling, and that dismisses feeling as emotional. So, and I believe that because women have access to emotions and have been culturally allowed to express certain emotions more easily than men can, that women also tend to confuse feeling with emotion. And patriarchy encourages that. Patriarchy says, emotions are for women, and, and anything that is coming from your feeling sense, from the wisdom of that which is not expressible verbally, is untrue, is unreal, is not valuable. So the way in which patriarchy and the entire educational and cultural hierarchical system that we live in stands in the way of this is by dismissing feeling as woo-woo or airy-fairy or, unreal or untrustworthy. And what we have to do in order to find our true feelings is to be willing to say, okay, I'm not sure that this feeling that I'm expressing, that I'm experiencing is authentic, but I'm willing to examine it and keep examining it and keep examining it. And I'm not going to listen to all those voices which tell me this is irrelevant or this is stupid or this is a waste of time, or this is going to get me mired in a swamp of emotion that I'll never get out of. But actually be willing to inquire, trusting the fact that the intelligence of the feeling sense of the is going to is really a guide here, and that feeling is not the same as emotion, even though emotion can be a doorway to feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Say more about that. I want to understand your definition. Are you saying that feelings are part of the body and emotions are not, or vice versa?
Well, I'm saying that I'm saying that both emotions and feelings are aspects of our personal energy system. In other words,
right.
every one of us has an energetic beingness, which is actually part of our body. It's actually embedded in our body, but it also connects us to the subtler self. So our feelings are a part of our deep energetic system, whereas emotions are energies that rise and fall, just as thoughts rise and fall. You know, when you turn inside, what you come across usually is a whole slew of random thoughts and images, you know, not to mention stronger, more charged thoughts and images, as well as emotions. But if you look at them carefully, you see that they pass. You know, they come and go. Whereas feelings, feelings which are connected to truth, do not come and go. They're always present when you kind of move past the flow of emotion or the flow of thought. The interesting thing to me about the way the human psyche is structured is that if we understand that everything that arises in our field comes from the innate felt sense of being, the felt sense of aliveness, the felt sense of presence, that is our deepest core of, you know, energy, and which has a unique energy signature in each of us, but which is connected to the greater energy field that we share. So out of this, you know, is a constant flow of ideas, emotions, images, calls to action that they sort of arise like a fountain from this core of you know, felt energy, which I would say what I find useful in understanding it is to recognize that true feelings are actually more like sensations than they are like thoughts. So feeling has a sensation aspect to it. You know, like if you feel into the sensation of your hand, for example, you know, you notice that there is an actual energetic sensation connected with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I
think I got it.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I got it, and I think that's a really powerful way to understand things as we move forward to close, because I want to leave people with a clear understanding about the terms, because when a woman starts to crush her cold and rid herself of these blocks and these barriers in order to feel what she feels and understand the terrain of emotions that run through her body and the feelings that are, like you said, stable, it's important for her to understand these terms. And so
absolutely,
this has been really powerful. It's been super helpful. Sally, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for that wonderful guided meditation that was impromptu and that was definitely spirit generated. I appreciated it so much. I'm sure the women listening appreciated it so much. And I will be playing it over and over as I move through the rest of 2016. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you so much, Janine, for your work and for this conversation, which was really a great pleasure and filled with depth. So I think it's beautiful what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Yes, and we welcome you back. Please make sure that you go over to the Supreme Love Project Closed Facebook group and join us there for people who have questions about our interviews. Anyone who's listening, if you want to talk to me or Sally or someone from our team, please go ahead over there, knock on the door. I will gain entry for you, and we will continue this conversation. And so you know the drill. Anything, yes, absolutely. Anything that you got, please.
Go ahead. I also wanted to say that you can find me on my website at sallykempton.com, where there are interviews and meditations and my schedule and lots of articles that are free and available. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone go over to sallykempton.com, get your free gift, which is on the Cool Crush site, so that you can download that and get in touch with Sally and her team, and also continue to grow in your quest to heal the terrors in your soul so you can launch a revolution in your life. Remember, every message that you hear on the Supreme Love Project, you can take it to heart and you can build it into your body. Thank you for listening and for taking part in Cold Crush, and I will see you on our next episode. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for participating in the Supreme Love Project. We're a division of Literacy for Life, LLC. Please visit thesupremeloveproject.com for more information about our products and services. Visit JanineStaples.com for more information about our beloved founder and president. And remember, take this message to heart and build it into your body. We'll see you next time, right here. The place to make love, not war, every day of your life.